Hello, how are you doing? I'm just going to talk to you a bit today about chitting potatoes, getting them ready for the ground. So, potatoes are split into three categories. So, you've first earlies, second earlies, and main crop. So, some of your first earlies we're going to do today, and some of the main crop. So, chitting means just getting them ready for sprouting. So, you're allowing them to sprout, and you can do this indoors, in a shed, in a polytunnel. You're allowing the sprout on them to get to about 2 to 3 centimeters, and it's helping them to get ready for when you put them into the ground. So we're going to do them a few different ways. So the one I have today is a potato called Duke of York, and as I said before, it's the first early. So your chitting should, the best way to do this is to use a old egg carton, so one with around 10 to 12 eggs. So typically you get them in kilogram bags or half kilogram bags. So as I said, the first earlies you're chitting around now and mid-February for planting out mid to late March. The second earlies you'll plant out early to mid-April, as well as the main crop. Then harvesting, you'll harvest the first earlies around June, July, and you'll harvest the second earlies and main crop August and sometimes a bit later. So in order to do them, we are going to do them in raised beds, or you can have specially designed ridges if your soil is not prone to waterlogging. Potatoes are a member of the Solaniferaceae family, so they're related to aubergines, tomatoes and tobacco, so they're all the same family, and obviously it's a tuber you eat. With first earlies, when they start to sprout, you can keep 4 of the best sprouts, and any other ones that aren't great, you just rub them out. Okay, so I'm just going to get our container here, and what I'm going to do is just label it, because all your chitted potatoes will look quite similar after a while. So if you're doing a second earlies and main crop as well, it's good to differentiate between them, so you'll be putting them into the ground at slightly different times. So I'm just going to write first early and Duke of York. If you don't have space in your garden for a raised bed, or you just want to do a few potatoes to start out in the first year, what I'd recommend is using grow bags, so kind of containers around this size, and you're going to do, I'm going to describe how you'll do that, and I'm going to put today's date, which is the 11th of the 2nd, 2021. So for this, just grab your potatoes. There is probably a side where there's some more obvious eyes. So on this one, it's this side. Just placing them in. You don't have to use an egg carton, but use some sort of container or space where the potatoes aren't touching each other. They don't need a lot of, they shouldn't be placed in a place where there's a lot of heat. So around the 10 to tops 18 degrees. But if people have a greenhouse or tunnel or shed, that is also an ideal place to let them chit. So remember, chitting is just a name for letting them sprout. So again, you don't want to let the sprout get too big, or else it can be quite delicate when you're planting it on the ground. So this is quite a small one, so there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potatoes in this, and I have another bag. So these are both the same type, these two ones. So again, I'm going to leave these out in the polytunnel, but if you have a shed, that will do equally as well. and you're aiming to leave them there and plant them kind of mid to late March. I know traditionally they always said St. Patrick's Day or just after St. Patrick's Day is a good time. I would let yourself judge by the weather. Potatoes don't like sitting in very waterlogged soil, so even though they need nutritious soil, don't put them in very wet areas. They won't like it, and there's danger that they will rot on the ground. Potatoes are often also prone to potato blight, which we know well about in Ireland, and this is a fungal infection that comes blowing on the wind. It tends to happen in very humid weather conditions, so typically at the end of summer, around August and into September. The weather forecast usually gives you some warning when blight is about to happen. So depending on where you have your spuds, you can give them some protection. So if you're growing them in grow bags, you can bring the bag inside for a couple of days during that blight warning. If you're doing ridges or in raised beds, you will need to give them some protection from the onslaught of that fungal disease, potato blight. First earlies generally do all their growing before the potato blight season, so there you don't have to worry about them. So it's the second earlies and more so the main crop that you have to worry about potato blight. So I'm going to send people a recipe on how to make a homemade fungicide from horsetail. So horsetail is a plant similar to the ferns and grows kind of like a weed in some places. So you're making an antifungal spray with that. So you're spraying that on your potatoes if there's a chance that blight might happen. So similarly, there's bluestone or copper sulfate, which is a commercially bought antifungal blight resistant mixture that once the fungal spores hit that, they die. So either way, once you keep your potatoes reasonably well drained and you cover up your potatoes so they can't be exposed to the sun, so as they grow you need to earth up the soil around the stem and keep the potatoes covered. So potatoes that are, for some reason, if the ridge falls away or they get exposed to the sun, the potato itself underground will go green. So then green potatoes must be discarded because they produce a toxin within them. So other than that, potatoes are a relatively easy crop to grow, and if you have a particularly weedy bed, raised bed, it's a good crop to grow because they will keep the weeds down. They'll have good leaf coverage, so all the leaves will germinate and die within that bed over that year. So also it's worthwhile putting well-rotted manure on your bed before you plant potatoes. So I'm just going to show you So furthermore, if you don't have raised beds, what you can use for your potatoes is a woven container like this. Your Lidl or Aldi bags for lice will do a very similar job. So what you're going to do, and possibly if you can get it slightly higher than this, it's all the better. You're going to fill the bottom third full of compost. You're going to, for a bag this size, I would probably use 2 potatoes, seed potatoes once chilled, and you're going to cover them over, and as they grow you're going to put more soil around the stem till it reaches the soil reaches the top. So again, for your first earlies, you're going to be harvesting them around June, July. So the flowers and the stalks will start to die back a bit, and that's an indication that your potatoes are ready underneath. So if you have a number of them planted, you can kind of dig away one and see what they're looking like. And if needs be, you can leave the others a little bit longer. So as I said, the main things to watch are for the potato blight. There are a few other pests and diseases that attack potatoes. the eelworm is one. So unfortunately, it's kind of hard to eradicate. It gets into the potato, and that you have to stop planting your potatoes in that area for a given time. So the next videos we're going to be doing are some of the peppers and tomatoes. So that'll be our next installment. So as the potatoes grow, we might do a follow-up video in terms of preparing the ground outside and planting them. Thank you.